Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Gleberman, and you're listening to Silence on Set podcast. I saw this movie and I just want to state for the record, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with how you did it.
Amazing.
I just love everything about it, but I'm going to jump right in.
Thank you for saying that.
So I want to start off first with what made you decide to choose Cleveland as the place to really set the scene for this family?
Well, it's so Cleveland chose us. So basically, the writer of the script, Renn Wheeland, he wrote, a story close to home. He's from Cleveland, and he had experienced loss of his mother's, passing away of cancer, and went home to kind of deal with what he was, what comes next, and kind of, she was a really important figure for him, their connection, and also him sort of chasing his dreams of being a writer, ultimately writing this movie. There's a theme of this character, like, sort of this crossroads of like, do I chase a more grounded job, or do I chase my dreams as a writer professionally, and something my mom always wanted me to do. So that's all sort of woven into like, certain things pulled from like, someone's experiences. And he was from Cleveland. So yeah, I mean, it's an honest, he's from Cleveland. It was written, a lot of the places in the film, if you read the script, actually reference certain locations in Cleveland. Although we shot it not in Cleveland with the trickery of filmmaking, I've been to Cleveland a lot. I've toured a lot, so I've been there a lot. And there's a certain feeling in Cleveland that we had to find elsewhere. And I think we were able to like create a little bit of that feeling, and Brett said we were very effective in like taking you to Cleveland even though we weren't there. So
yeah, no, I love it. And it's a funny coincidence because I'm here for a movie, so I'm actually right outside of Cleveland, so that's why I was like,
amazing. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker, but I'm here right now, so it was just funny.
Nice.
I was like, oh, this is serendipitous that it's all about
Totally.
so
And he's in the opening, he's not in Cleveland. He's living elsewhere, and he's going home. So like he gets the news that his mother passed away, so he's going. That's the beginning of him traveling back home. But yeah, so we're mostly in Cleveland. Our story is set mostly in him going back home and being in this sort of life that he grew up in.
So talk to me about casting and trying to balance, the humor, because I know I read your director's statement, and obviously it was really important for you to bring authenticity, but also at the same time show a little bit of humor, because that's what you go through. You're kind of like, your emotions are jumbled when unfortunately there's a death that's close to you. So you guys balanced it so well. So how did you work through that in the script to really balance it, to make it, not too sad, not too happy, just kind of perfect?
Well, the script had that. I'd say originally, like, Brett did a really good job of writing a script that had established that balance of heart and comedy. He wrote about loss through his experience, and so it was written from an honest place. And I think when you come from that place, there's going to be this like part emotional heartbeat to the film, rooted in a real experience. And for people who have like gone through experience like this, maybe they'll find, okay, like different experience I had, but I feel connected to the story in some ways. But yeah, I mean, it starts with like the script. If the script establishes the sort of tone of the movie, you can read it on the page. You kind of can get a sense of like how these jokes might play out on screen, but can you kind of keep them grounded in a way where you can maintain tone and style? That would be like the job of the director, is like taking the words on the page and putting it on the screen. So what are the choices you're making to bring it to life that are complementary, tactics to help elevate what's on the page and preserve what's on the page that we liked, but see if we can help communicate that to like audiences, right? That would be that middle job. And but yeah, I mean, I think it's the kind of humor I always gravitate towards in this material. It's humor that takes a moment to build. Like, you have to kind of earn the audience's sort of willingness to like invest their time in the setup of the joke that pays off a little later down the road. So yeah, and it's those little subtle things that I find to be the most like fulfilling comedically. It's a look, it's a gesture, it's a cutaway to an object. It's little things like that can be the most effective. And then when you're cutting a movie, the beauty of like cutting a movie is you shape it. It's like you have all these things to work with. If you shot a movie with pieces, sometimes you shoot a movie that doesn't have options, and you're just, this is what it is, like whether I like it or not, this is my scene. I like to get a lot of pieces and variations of like performances. So it gives me more flexibility in the edit to like shape it a little way. If I want to go this way, if I go a little that way, I can balance it. So yeah, I think like I feel, the movie, I think, came out in a way that as you said, like, it walks that tightrope of laughs, but of tears. And I think, and it's honest, I think those emotional scenes are very honest. Some of them really sneak up on you too. Like there's a scene in the store where he's buying the tie for the funeral. He doesn't have a tie because he's never like bought a black tie for a more formal kind of thing like this. And he bumps into his old high school friend, and the high school friend knows what happened, but it's that sort of like, don't I talk about it? And how do I talk about it? And you're in this like retail store and there's music playing. It's like, it's such the not environment to talk about it. But he recalls like a story of their childhood of his mother like doing something really kind, like letting him wait in the car when his mom was late. And it's so subtle, but like that scene always hits people. Like that's where it kind of creeps up on you, and you're not expecting that scene to become what it becomes. So it's like, that's what I love about the movie, is like it has unexpected qualities to it.
Yeah, and ironically, speaking of that scene, I also felt it was so nice because it mirrored his mom, because he said his mom used to hate going out, shopping, running into people. And I feel like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of us
exactly.
hate that. And
Yeah,
so I loved when he like, is looking and like, this is horrible. It's probably like the worst day of your life. And as you're looking around, you're like, no, I see someone I
yeah,
know. And he just hides. And I went, oh my gosh, he's his mother's son. Like he's just
right,
there's so many
right.
elements of her to him, which I thought
Yeah,
were
totally.
great.
It's interesting too. Like, I know wasn't your question, but like it's funny because he's also, because he's like, when you meet him, he's grieving, right? He's like going through this experience. He doesn't know what to feel, because there's the thing, I always found this too, like with my own experiences with like loss, was like, am I supposed to act this way? Because it's like, that's what people expect you to be. You're supposed to be crying here. You're supposed to not, like, if I'm not crying, what's wrong with me? These are the kind of questions that came up for me. But like Renn, Lily, the character, is actually a bit of like a light in the story. Like, she's a glowing, very fun, energetic mom. His memory of her are those of like pleasant, happy, healthy Lily. And she is a person that was very like talkative and easy to connect to, and the life of the party, as Brett described her. But it's funny because Renn paints her in the picture of the priest character as like, she didn't want to talk to anybody. But in a way, that's almost like Renn's interpretation of her right now in this very doomsday kind of experience. So it's almost like you're building a profile of who the mother was through these memories, right, as an audience member. But in a way, Lily isn't the person he paints her out to be with Father Dan. He's kind of painted her out to be such a downer. But I think that's because he's bringing the weight of his own confusion to his perception of her. So
I agree. And I really like, the family that you created, with Matt and with Nick and with Brittany. So really quickly, what was it like, casting them and seeing them kind of play this, and David, family of all of them together, which is always like a little bit dysfunctional and
yeah,
trying to move through the motions.
everyone was placed very well on the page. So you kind of had you had like a Rick. When you read Rick, you kind of had a sense of like Rick, that pink polo shirt, or like at the funeral home, he's just kind of doing everything wrong, like backwards, Rick's decisions. And then Darren, the sort of like lovable, fumbly, I'm trying to be a good dad, but I don't know how to connect with you emotionally kind of a dad. But like, yeah, so they just kind of people start coming to mind, as you're casting. But, you know, Nick, I've known for 16 years, Nick Jonas, he's a friend, but he's also such a very hardworking, like throw himself into everything he does kind of a person who's up for the challenge, and I think it's his first starring role. So that's like a lot of weight on him, but he did a great job. Brittany Snow, like, she hasn't, like, this style movie, I think this tone, this kind of family dynamic was new for her, that she had said was like she was very pulled into this world, and, loved the voice of the character, but also felt she has that, like, she at times can be like hard in a way with emotionally, like she's had some sort of division with certain like friends, or certain times of experiences she's gone through, trying to open up that more vulnerable self to her for more connection. And I think she was really interested to kind of embody this Lee character and play around in the skin of Lee, and kind of create some of those qualities of like, when can I go to her, and when can I, how to kind of judge that kind of a character as a sister character. She did such a great job with the role. And really, Brittany brought such great emotional depth to the role. Like that scene with them on the stairs, where she's talking about how she wouldn't trade her half for the whole world, even though she only got the bad half, let's say, that when she was sick, she didn't really ever feel like she got her mom at all. So just getting anything was meant so much to her. Anyway, she played that so well. And then And I thought they did a great brother sister kind of dynamic of like, when is it okay to kind of come to each other's rescue? Darren, Matt Walsh is a friend, and I know he's got a lovable comedic sense to him. But it was also nice to see him as this kind of like grounding father figure that was trying his best. I thought he did a great job of that. And emotional, he was very emotional at times. And David Arquette, like I think David, like he pulled off Rick like on another level. Like I think we all, the first day he came in, the first scene we shot was with him showing up at the priest's house and doing this sort of like eulogy quilt line, and handoff is complete, and all these lines that he delivered brought like such like this off-putting quality to him, but he's also, there's a likableness too to David at the same time, so it's a bit jarring of like, how do I feel about Rick? But and then Alex Shipp, like Alex, we wanted Zoe to be a complementary energy to like the mother character. Like if you go back and watch the movie, you'll find that Alex and Elizabeth bring the sort of same fun to Renn's life, and a lot of laughs, a lot of joy, a lot of like escaping a little bit of reality. And you wonder, like, is he writing her into his life at the time of need as a writer, right? Is he creating this kind of somebody that he needs to meet right now at this point in his life? Yeah, no, everyone. And by the way, across the board, to celebrate all the actors, like everybody did such a great job in the film. They couldn't, you couldn't ask for more collaborative actors who were, so dedicated and supportive of like what we were trying to do creatively. So yeah, the rest is just on us. We just have to deliver a movie and make sure it's entertaining and exciting and hits all the emotional notes. And for you, it sounded like it did, but the movie's coming out on the 23rd of July. We're in theaters, which is like a big pressure's on kind of a thing. And so we're just really hoping people come out and see it. The good half.
Okay. First of all, love the beanie. I was cracking up. Like, so I'm like
Yeah,
super
yeah,
sad and like laughing kind of throughout it, but the beanie was hilarious. It was so something I was like, I would do that with my siblings. Like, screw that guy. I want my stuff. So when people
yeah,
see it, they'll know what I'm talking about. But I really wanted to ask you kind of a two-part question. One, which is, I want to take the long road. That
yeah,
line,
yeah,
how is
yeah.
that different from the beginning of the film to the end of the film? And then also, I know that you mentioned the theater, but what are you most excited about for people to see? Because like I said, I think this is the most realist kind of depiction of the chaos in your brain of what you go through when you lose somebody.
So the long way question, as far as like the meaning of it on both sides of the movie, I could come up with like my interpretation would be that, he has his own Cleveland, he has his own sort of like way he deals with Cleveland. And I think this kind of gives him, it's like, when you go home to a certain place or you go to a trip or something, you have a ritual of like what you do. I think Renn, it represents a few things. I mean, one, in a movie like this, I don't know if it's totally believable that someone just comes out the other end totally a changed person. So in a way, we're coming back to like ritual that he's already established. So he's changed in some ways, but he has his way of doing things. So maybe that's honest. But I think it's acceptance. At the end of grief is acceptance. Usually the stages of grief, you get to acceptance. And I think those around him are accepting what makes him him. And I think in the beginning of the movie, he's getting a little bit of pushback, or he's meant to be getting a little bit of like a eye rollingness from the sister. Why didn't you call me? Or you took the long way. The dad, you like to take the long way. I would have picked you up at the airport. Renn has certain like things he does, and I don't know if he feels totally at home and at ease in his family. And at the end, there's a sort of like fun to be had with Renn, his dad driving him back to the airport, taking the long way. It's a sense of connection and family, keeping that alive would be a way to interpret that. I mean, life, there's no shortcuts in life. So there's the idea of taking the long way, it's just part of life. It's kind of only natural. And at the end of the movie, he's accepted he's going to write, and that's going to be a long road for him. So maybe there's like metaphor, this idea of like, I'm willing to accept this long path. Change, recovery is long too. It's not easy. Those themes could be said there. And then the biggest takeaway, I mean, like, I just think there's a lot of movies being made all the time, and a lot of the things that even you and I aren't even aware have been made or even were finished or coming out. And I just think it's so cool, and I feel so lucky that like we have a movie that people like can see in theaters. That's like really, really fortunate, given that nothing really goes to theaters on this like wide scale. And that's why I hope people really see too, because we need to also like change the industry and show like, oh, indie movies, people will want to see them. Like that's important. Like we need to show everyone's watching. Like if the movie performs well, people will hear about it, and I think that's going to make its way over to like all the other distributors going, oh my God, maybe we can find more good AF kind of movies to put in theaters. So I hope we can like change the mentality. I just hope, at the end of the day, it's like, grateful people get in the car, whatever, however they get to a theater physically, spend money to see a movie when you could just kind of stay home all night watching whatever's on like that. I have great, like appreciation for people who do that. So yeah, like all I can ask for is that people like feel they got, like had a good experience with this film and it was worth it.
Let's jump in. I've seen the film. It's so good. And it was
Thank
so
you.
funny because I know you as such a sweet, nice, gentle human being. And not that Rick isn't a nice, gentle human being, but he's just a little off, a little kind of out of the loop. So
Yeah.
how would you describe him and kind of his journey that he goes through during this film?
Oh man, it was just, I mean, Brett wrote such an incredible script that you kind of just have to sort of play what he wrote. I mean, you just have to stay in the sort of lane of your character and understand sort of your character's point of view. The story is based on a true story, so it was his sort of experiencing going through something like this. But it became really apparent to me that Rick was pretty much a narcissist. So when you think on those terms, you can just kind of approach your character that way. Like, well, something might be funny and you could laugh it off. He wouldn't. He'd be like, find it annoying and like, see himself above certain things or couldn't care less about stuff. The way he sort of made his way through the sort of process of losing somebody really always was about him, and his sort of what was more make it more convenient for him, what would, get it over with quicker, what would cost the least amount of money, those kind of things. Like you wouldn't consider like feelings. Like this
Mm.
isn't about feelings.
Yeah, this isn't about feelings when it's a tragic movie.
I know, totally. Like, totally. There's a funny, and it's not a funny scene. It's a pivotal scene. It's a powerful scene where Nick Jonas' character gets upset with my character because I'm laughing and telling a joke at the memorial service. And he comes up to me and he's really heated, and we get into this sort of final, like, blow up scene. But what the audience doesn't know is that within the script, there was a limousine ride from the funeral to the party. And Robert called me up and he said, and my character, Rick, was written in there. And he called me up and he's like, hey, you don't have to come in like till 12:30, you're not going to be in the funeral scene or something like that. And that was fine. Great. I have another hour that I don't have to get to work. But for Rick, he was really pissed. Rick was so upset that he had paid for this limousine and then how dare them all ride in this limousine together. Like, I can't believe you do something like that. So he never said it. So he just bottled it up and he just would like stew on it. So when that scene came up, that's what he's angry about. Like, he's not angry about him being upset at him about, not being, there for his mom or this or that. He was upset about not being allowed in the limousine. Like, that's really what it came down to him. Like, that's why the anger's there. Like, he would have just, like, kind of thrown it away. Like, really, buddy, get a grip, rather than, be so heated about it. He was heated because he didn't get to ride in a limousine. So at least that's what I was like going through in my mind. So that's where I would like, that's where my point of view was coming from. So it just made for this sort of silly kind of approach to it. That's how this character kind of, I would look at a lot of things that way.
Yeah.
How he drive up and drive away. Like, it was all about, him and like, he didn't have much care for others or their feelings.
And I was wondering, like, from your perspective, is this because he's also obviously grieving? Because he does go through an arc where, like, you're so likable as a person. And so, like, when you watch it, there's likable qualities that you see in him where I feel like he's an outsider and he's trying to fit in, but he's doing it all the wrong ways. But there's that scene where, Rick does bring materials and stuff from his wife that had passed to the family. And somebody wouldn't do that, I don't feel, unless they kind of have learned a little bit or have changed as the process of grief. You go through all those steps. So do you think that he changed, like, from the beginning of the movie to that very end scene when he comes and brings the box?
Not really. Like, for him,
Oh,
he
really?
wants to be Yeah, he wants to be the good guy, like, he wants to
Oh,
be
okay.
like, he was kinda like, he's been seen as the bad guy, kinda lose lost it on the kid, a little bit. I mean, I didn't wanna get too much, like, into, like, the balance of it, but for him, he wasn't mad at anymore about the limousine, like, he'd kind of let that anger go. He also, just from Rick's point of view, like, this stuff's taking up a lot of space, and I don't need any of this stuff, and I mean, I take it to, like, the Goodwill, like, I'll dump it at their place. It'll make them feel better. Like, that's literally the way he would look at it. It was, just to make him look better, like, that's why he dropped it off, not so much to, like, I mean, there's elements of myself that kinda come out in some of that stuff and wanting to be, like, part of the whole group, but he's not, But, yeah, no, Rick didn't have any big, emotional arcs or, like, he didn't have any kinda, like he just really wanted to get the stuff out of his house. Like,
I
that's
love
really
that I'm,
what
like, looking for the heart and soul. You're like, "No, Rick's just a douche." Like, he just wanted to get the stuff out and call it a day.
He wanted the credit for it. He definitely wanted to be considered the good guy, and he didn't even get that. You know what I mean? The funny part.
How was it? I know, like, there's not a ton of scenes, but how was it working with, obviously, Nick Jonas, Matt Walsh? And, I mean,
Amazing.
you're up there too. Listen, I mean, I would kill to work with you, but, like, what was it
Oh,
like
thank
for all
you.
of you on set? And what was it, how was it working together? And what did you guys do to kind of try to bond or maybe not bond for Rick's sake? Just what was it like on set and working together?
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, everybody, like, was really so strong and, for Nick to lead the movie, and just have such a powerful performance and just be so open to, like, the comedic elements and the sort of humor of it, and then, the dramatic elements. It was, Brett wrote a really wonderful script, and it was just all sort of there and based on, a true experience. So we also had that going for us. And, the main thing is, like, where you fit into the, film, and how you play off of each other and your point of view of your character, and when you sort of do ad lib stuff, that it falls within that. And I loved working with all of them. I was so impressed by Nick. He's just such a talented actor, and Brittany, she's incredible. I've known her for a while, and she's just such a solid actress. And then Matt Walsh, he's an incredible comedic actor that I hadn't had the opportunity to work with before. And Elizabeth, she was so great. We only had one scene together, but it was really fun, like, talking about backstory, like, why do you think these two are together? All this stuff. It was like, they just, had some kind of, connection. But, it was fun. It was really fun. There was a lot of, Robert, the director, just, had a really wonderful way of keeping it loose, but keeping it moving. He, like, created a world that, there were surprises within the world where we'd go to the funeral home and there would be one of the background actors, like, in a casket. Like, I didn't know that that was going to be there. So, for me, for my character, is instead of just, like, laughing at it, or, like, I just kind of go